So the meeting is open?
Yes.
Give me my cue. Okay. Like I said, the chair is going to be a few minutes late getting here, so we're going to start. We're going to start now. We have some guests, and I want to keep them open. The chair is going to do the welcome, and I'm going to do the welcome. Welcome. The introductions, and I'm going to. There are some staff people here, and then there are some people that represent other agencies and kind of DCAO. But I'm going to let you all go around the table, starting with you, Ms. James, and introduce yourself to me.
Good evening, Keenan James. Live in Marlboro, Maryland. Native of Prince George's County. And
hello, everybody. Good evening. I'm Lafayette Melton, also a resident of Marlboro, Maryland. I look forward to serving with you all.
Hello, I'm Tamika Springs. I am a resident of Maryland. I've been in the county for about 12 years. I'm glad to be here.
Hey, my name is Andrea Coleman. I also live in Bowie, and I'm glad to be here and looking forward to rolling my sleeves up and getting to work.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Sheila Bryant. I'm a resident of Upper Marlboro. I've been in Maryland since 2008. I'm an attorney and an activist, and I'm glad to be here.
I'm Earl O'Neill from South County, Maryland. Retired.
Good evening, everyone. Carlos Sanchez, lifelong resident of Prince George's County. I live in a little neighborhood called Carroll Highlands on the northern tip of Prince George's County, right next to Montgomery County. And this week we're closing on a house. I'll be in Adelphi for about 5 minutes over. So a pleasure to meet you.
My name is Danny Bergamini. I live in Capitol Heights about the last 6 years.
well, good evening, everyone. My name is Barry Stanton. I'm the Deputy Chief Administrative Officer for Public Safety. I'm here tonight in TICO, overseeing the police accountability process for the county and on behalf of the county executive out of town. So again, I just came here today to congratulate all of you. We're going to give yourself a round of applause for this. And I say that because this has been a long time coming. I want to commend Rhonda Weaver, who's over here. We've been working on this for a year. Some of you I've seen on camera. And getting to this point is historic. And I say that in a sense is, you're going to be overseeing police accountability in the entire county, not just Prince George's County. And your role is something that's expected. Your role is something that's been a long time coming. And I look at it that you're going to change the role of policing in Prince George's County for many, many, many years to come. And so I'm here today to just congratulate all of you. I wish you well. My role is more or less will be a liaison. We worked hard to get you where you are. As Danny knows, we've had many meetings on police reform in this county since the last year. And I want to commend Denise. We picked her as the administrator of overseeing the Police Accountability Board. I really have to commend Rhonda Weaver, the county attorney, who helped us get to this process through the legislative process and getting all of you on board, because I'm sure you saw this was a feat in itself, getting a 11-member board in place. And so to get to this point has been a great accomplishment. Also, it's good to see Marvin Jo Camp. She was on my work group also, getting to this point, and to have her participating tonight and being a part of this process. It makes my job a little easier. It makes your job a little harder, but it's going to make my job a little easier. So, unless you have any questions for me, I'm just came here to say congratulations. I look forward to working with each of you, and let's move this process forward. So thank you very much. What's that? Oh, no, I'm not going to run yet. I'm going to see what Rhonda's doing. I got to watch Rhonda.
Well, I give an opportunity to speak because
Yeah.
the busy man. So we're going to finish our introductions with Ms. Rosalind Walker.
Sure, I'm Rosalind Walker. I'm with the Office of Ethics and Accountability. Kind of a sister-brother organization here with the two of us, our two organizations or two agencies and boards. I'm happy to have you guys here. I know, like you said, that this has been a long time coming, and I wish you guys well.
Good evening, I'm Margaret Jo Camp. I'm an attorney in private practice. I've lived in Prince George's County since 1968, just a little while. And I am serving as general counsel for the PAB, and I previously served as general counsel for the CCO. Citizen Complaint Oversight Panel, a precursor to that. So I thought it sounded cute.
Well, to give you a little background, when they first decided on their name, they thought people used the acronym TCOP. And it fetched them to, everybody calls it CCOP.
Hi, good evening. Rhonda Weaver, County Attorney. I'm just here, as I was asked by Denise to give a legislative overview of the state law as well as the county law that passed this summer. I know it became effective like August 14th or whatever the date was, maybe August 25th. Just to give a quick overview of that, we're gonna, Denise already has the PowerPoint presentation. And so they're gonna post it as part of the minutes after the meeting's over. And then she also has an electronic copy for you as well. So you'll have this, you'll have a copy, and you know, as you know, Margaret Jo is your attorney. I'm not your attorney, but under our county code, this board as well as the ACC, Administrative Charge Committee, I'm sorry, they get independent counsel. Right. So Margaret Jo is the attorney for your board. I'm just here to go over the legislative information.
Thank you.
I work for both.
Two other staff people.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Sandy Allen, and I am the program associate for the PAB. So I look forward to working with each of them.
They're just going to be there in a lot of the outreach. She's going to work with you guys to decide what kind of outreach you want to do. And
Hi, everybody. I'm Ashley Ritter. I'm the administrative aide for the office. I've actually been with the PAB/CCOP for 14 years.
Wow. I didn't know that,
Ashley was in favor for you.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to move straight to the briefing. The first one, as Rhonda mentioned, is going to be the legislative briefing on how we got here and why we exist.
Okay, well, I've been allotted 30 minutes. I'm gonna try not to use all that time. And listen, I don't own it, but I've been accused of being a fast talker. So if anytime you need to stop me, I heard this smirk. Anytime you need to stop me, just stop me and I'll repeat something, okay? And I'll be available to answer questions as long as there's time, okay? And I'm just, if you all have looked at the law at all, you know that with the state law, particular state law, there's many provisions. Okay, I just try to highlight what was most relevant to your duties and some of the other associated boards that you might not be working directly with, but who work impacts what you all are doing. Okay, so for the first slide, and this I realized after I printed off is a little difficult to read, but the Maryland Police Accountability Act, as you know, was passed by the General Assembly in 2021, and it's really composed of several different pieces of legislation. So what I try to do is on this first slide here, it's a slide number 2. I just highlight either the House bill or the Senate bill that passed and gave you the topic of what each bill dealt with. They're now all been adopted to the. I'm sorry. No, it's but like I said, for the audience watching from home as well, this PowerPoint will be posted with the minutes. Well, it's probably going to be after they approve the minutes, but it's going to be posted after the minutes. And all the board members can get an electronic copy from this hall. So HB 670, that's really the main part of the bill that we're dealing with. That created the boards, that has a lot of the substantive procedures and that we're going to be dealing with. That's HB 670. HB 71, I mean Senate Bill 71. I included in here and I put it in red because that's the use of force statute. As you know, one of the changes the state did was they passed a use of force statute. which is a standard that all the law enforcement agencies across the state have to abide by. So in case you get a use of force issue to review, as part of your disciplinary outcomes, or just as a matter of policy, we're dealing with the state statute now. SB 600, I just kind of highlighted here as well, because when there's investigation of death caused by the police, it's dealt with in this bill. And then there's SB 763. Now in 2022, General Assembly made some amendments, and the amendments are pretty much here. I do have a slide here that summarizes all the amendments. At some point, what I can do too is, if Marva Jo wants me to, I do have certain presentations that actually has like the Westlaw clean version of the law, because the legislation is all strict enough, and so I can make sure I can get a copy of like the clean Westlaw versions over to Denise if Marva Jo wants to. I'm going to jump right into this presentation. So I'm on now slide number 3. And this is the structure, everybody with me? It has the 3 circles on it. This is the structure per the state law. Okay, then we'll go to the county law as I finish the state law, and I'll tell you how the county law may be different in some places than the state law, okay? But basically the board set up by the, under the police accountability law, is a police accountability board, what you are. And in the state law, there's no limit on the number of people, okay? Then we have the administrative charging committee, and there's one for each county. What makes it very unique for the county, and in my mind, difficult, is because we have, well, I think about 28 municipalities, and at least 24 of them have law enforcement agents. And there's one administrative charging committee for the whole county. And that was made very clear in the law. So what you're going to be looking at disciplinating outcomes for is not just Prince George's County Police or the Office of the Sheriff. It's going to be all the municipalities as well. Now, those are your probably bigger agencies, but you're going to have items to deal with other agencies. And then we have the trial board, which is the hearing board for discipline. I'm sorry, we'll go to the charging committee. So there's 5 members. The members consist of either this PAB chair or a designee of the PAB chair. So that person is also going to be a member of the ACC. Okay, it's going to be 2 civilians on the administrative charging committee, and 2 civilians are chosen by the PAB. And I will say that the conduct that you all are dealing with, or these new boards are dealing with, is police conduct that happens July 1st or later. Okay, so there's some things that are kind of waiting for our ACC to get in place. So because there are some investigations that's ready to go to the ACC. Now, I'm also going to mention too is that as far as training, it states in the law for the ACC and the state law and the trial board members, they can't start until they do the training that the Police Training Commission has developed for them. And for the ACC, that training is 40 hours. But they're not going to schedule it until we get the board in place. And the goal is to get everybody on the board that 1 week set aside for them to go and get the training all together. And I'm also going to say this too, is that what we've heard from Police Training Commission is that for your week, you need to go your entire week. And if you miss a day, let's say you go days 1 and 2, but you got to miss day 3, you got to stop. And you got to wait for the next class that they put in, and you can start at day 3. But if you miss a class, you got to stop and wait till the next class goes in place. And the last I've been told, they're really only doing 1 class a month because each class is for 1 week. So as soon as our ACC is in place, we can work to schedule that training, but we have to get it in place first. That's all my hint to say, as soon as you all can pick your members. So we can get the county executive has picked her members because they had to be confirmed by the council. But you all pick yours, but there's no council confirmation required for your members. It's whatever process you all decide to do. And I think we're going to go into that a little bit later today, or the chair is. And then there's the trial board. So basically, when there's an offer of discipline, and we'll get into this a little bit more, but what the ACC is doing, they're looking at the investigation. They're deciding if the officer is going to be administratively charged. And if they are, they're recommending discipline. That all goes back to the law enforcement agency. And the police chief can accept the ACC's recommendation or go higher. They can't go lower. So the ACC, those recommendations, they have some real power because the chief has to at least do what the ACC says. They can't, he or she can't go lower. They can only go higher within the discipline matrix. So one of the I probably skipped this, but one of those initial bills I talked to you about is a discipline matrix. And actually they just released that, I think, this summer. This summer. So basically it's like and all the police departments have to adopt it, okay? But basically what it does is kind of list an offense and like a range of what appropriate discipline would be. And you have to come within that discipline. So let's say it's, I'm gonna pick an easy one, failure to appear before. It might say you can go anywhere from a reprimand to, I'm making this up, so I don't know what's it for, reprimand or to a 2-day suspension. You can get anywhere within there. You cannot terminate, for a first offense if not in the matrix, but you go anywhere from the, reprimand to the 2-day suspension. And the idea is they want a discipline for law enforcement agencies to be more equal across the board. And this is their way they were trying to do that. So for the 3 members, and this has some changes in our county law, but the county executive is going to pick, there's a trial judge member. And when I say trial judge, I mean an administrative law judge, an active or retired administrative law judge, or a retired judge from the Prince George's County courts. And that person is going to be, is appointed by the county executive. The PAB selects the civilian member of those trial boards, okay? And then the officer of equal, the officer has a right to another officer from their agency, the officer of equal rank. So you have the child judge member, you have the person who's chosen by the PAB, and then you're going to have an officer of equal rank. And remember, we're dealing with 23 agencies. So arguably, you might need to have 23 people at some point. The good news is that for those persons, the police officer of equal rank and the civilian member, they're going to do like a 1-day or day and a half training. Because both those 2 groups, ACC and trial board members, have to do the state training before they can serve. But just, you don't know who's going to need the training and when, you don't know when the case is going to come up. So, it's a work in progress. We're all working through this together. Okay. All right. I'm now on slide 4. I kind of touched on some of this. Again, so you have your police accountability board. You have the charge committee, and they're going to decide if administrative charges are going to be brought or not. If they decide no charge is going to be brought, the process stops, right? So if they say there's not enough use to sustain any charges, it stops. But if they say they should be charged, then they recommend discipline. The officer can either accept the discipline, then the process stops because the discipline is opposed, or if the officer doesn't accept the discipline, it goes to trial. Okay. House Bill 670, I'm sorry, I'm moving my computer screen here. This is really your duties as set out in the state law, okay? And when I get a little bit further, I'll show some things the county added to these duties or kind of modified on these duties. But the duties of this board is to hold quarterly meetings with the head of the law enforcement agencies. Remember, you got about 24. You're going also, you appoint the members of the charging committee and the trial boards, as I just mentioned. You do a quarterly review of the disciplinary outcomes for each agency. Okay, I'm not sure how they're going to present that to you, but basically what you're going to be looking at, you're going to take a look at, okay, this was the discipline I was handed down. These are the outcomes. And you make a decision based upon what you get. If you see any concern with that, if you have any questions about that, and as you do your review, if there's any policy changes or whatever that you want to end up recommending, but that's really a strong point of what you are doing, and look at disciplinary outcomes to make sure you feel they're just and the way that they meet the charge or whatever. But you kind of look at it in a global fashion. You want to make sure that, for example, Seat Pleasant and this because I know we're in Capitol Heights are so far apart as far as how they issue discipline. And so, because again, the idea is some type of equality across the board. Of course, you're not going to get it perfectly. You got different people, you got different agencies, but with the matrix, you're trying to get the discipline for similar offenses as similar as you can across the board in the state of Maryland. Okay, so by December 31st of each year, you have to give a report to the county executive and the county council on any of your recommendations, any concerns you see, any policy changes you want to recommend. You get that by December 31st of every year. And I just recommended the policy changes. For the next slide, this goes with the charging committee. Again, they're going to get the investigation. Let me mention one thing I put in my slide too. Sometimes, the complaint can be filed with the Police Accountability Board. And then, July 1st or like June 30th or so, we opened up the email because, so people had somewhere to go. We put blasts out on social media messages and all that. If you want to file a complaint, you can send it here to the Police Accountability Board. All you do with that initial complaint is really the administrative staff. Within 3 days, that has to go to the law enforcement agency because they do the investigation. But this idea is that people may feel more comfortable come to the Police Accountability Board than they would do maybe going directly to the law enforcement agency. Whatever the reason is, you're another resource to take the intake of the complaints that come in. Yes.
Is that just for the statewide?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
And one of the requirements of law enforcement agencies is to adopt it. Now, one of the things I believe NPTC, and very correct me if I'm wrong, they're still holding meetings on it. Because I think they gave now is like a proposed, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're still holding some meetings on it. But you know, I think they came out in the summer. I think they got 180 days, if I'm not mistaken, to make everything final for all the regulations. But yes, so they're still, and I want to say from various work groups, which some of you are a part of, you know, there's several representatives from different law enforcement agencies who are attending those mental police training meetings that they hold.
But I would say right now, consider them in effect.
Oh yeah, we're using what they got out right now, but there's a change. They could be changed. Another thing you'll also be able to do is, no, this is the charter committee, I'm sorry. They can, they'll take a look at it, they'll get the recommendations I said before. They can ask for more investigation to be done by the law enforcement agency. Does their timeline, they're gonna ask within 30 days of getting the investigation. They can review body camera footage. They can interview witnesses. So there's a lot of things that they can do before they make the decision, but they got 30 days. Now, they get in 30 days if you want more information. The statute kind of stops speaking at that point. But I would just say it's reasonable to say, I don't know how we did it. I don't know how we done the guideline documents, I don't remember. But I would say if you do ask for more information, I mean, if they ask for more information, I would think that 30-day clock will start over. Remember, this is new law. I expect a lot, not a lot, across the state, different litigation, just to help clear up some of the things I say might be holes. You see what I'm saying? And that's just what you have with new law. I don't think it's a bad thing. I mean, think like the ADA or Title VII. You know, that was a sweeping change. And it took years of litigation to get somewhat of a sound framework. I don't think it'll be that lengthy of litigation, but there's some things that I talk to the county attorneys across the state all the time. People just don't agree on it. Or we don't know what they meant exactly. So to the extent that we may get it wrong when someone challenges us, when I say we, I mean the county, and we get challenged. That's what litigation is for. You know, and then, you know, we see what happens. We have tried, and various offices have been very good about this, giving things to NPTC and the General Assembly, you know, actually when there was questions. You know, I know a couple of council members asked members of the delegation to ask for, could actually get a real quick opinion from the AG's office, is to get into your state delegation. I can't remember the answer to the question that was asked. It was something about, could we give the PAB members more authority than was in the state law? I think that was one of the questions. And another question was, I didn't remember. But
Investigative, there was some type of investigation.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but as far as I know, an answer has not come back yet from the 80s.
So we probably won't get an answer right now, at least until the new
well, that's true too.
Attorney General gets involved.
Okay, and then I just mentioned the trial board. The trial board, again, if the officers accept the discipline, it goes to a trial board. The members already mentioned, you got a judge member, you're gonna have the PAB member, you know, civilian member, you know, who the PAB chooses, and you're gonna have the officer of equal rank. On slide number 8.
I have a question.
Sure.
At what point does the police union get involved?
They can represent the officer, okay? They can represent the officer. They generally are there. I don't know. I mean, remember, we don't have an LEOPR anymore. So we don't have a law enforcement officer bill of rights. Right. Probably as a matter of bargaining law, they're still probably going to be there for the interview or the interrogation of the officer. And they can represent the officer. The officer still has a right to representation in these proceedings. The one thing that I think that's notable, that's one of my slides, as the state law is set out, they can't try to change it via the law. This is not subject to collective bargaining. Right. So we have, it is mandatory, it has to be followed. It's, there's been a couple little twists, non-contradictory twists that made particularly with the county law that the FOP asked for. I think there was one amendment that the county council accepted, but they can't say we don't have to have an agency, or we can go bypass agency, or I mean, this is mandatory law, for the counties. And I think they made some disagreement about that. I'm not saying in our county, but just in general. But this is, to me, is very clear. It's preemptive law. You got to follow it, and we're going to follow it, the best we can. Okay, my computer keeps going back. Give me 1 second. When I go to the county law, I'll point out to you, it was about how you get the officer equal. That's in the county law. But I'll put it on when I get to the county law piece. Okay, here's a summary of the 2022 amendments. This is just a summary, because remember this law, that's a summary or 22 amendments, that should be summary of 2022 amendments. Okay, there was a question before when the law first passed in 2021. Did this process, particularly the ACC investigation, because really that kind of is what you're going to be looking at, the things that go to disciplinary outcomes. And there was a question about, because they use the word external complaints. Because the idea was, I guess, is that they were saying that it's when a citizen makes a complaint. But the fact, the reality is that a lot of the police misconduct that comes to the attention of law enforcement agency comes to the attention by another law enforcement officer. So the concern was, well, is it just really internal or is it internal or external? And so what the 22 amendments make clear was that they're looking at all the police misconduct complaints. So it's internal and external. Doesn't matter how it came to the police department's attention. If it's police misconduct, it's going through this ACC process. Another thing it made clear too is that the discipline matrix applies to all matters that a police officer could be subject to discipline. So it's not just arguably police conduct. It's anything that can be subject to discipline. The minor stuff like not the right uniform on or whatever the case may be, or always the failure to appear is all the way up to excessive force, illegal detention, in custody death, is everything had discipline for it. That matrix applies. It also made clear that the trial board applies to all matters that a police officer can be subject to discipline. So it's no minor offense that's too little to go before the trial board. They do everything. And now it's a change they made clear with the 2022 amendments. They also, this is not really relevant to you all, but they also made provisions for trial boards of statewide or by county law enforcement. So like Parkland Plan. So they put in the 2022 amendments, they addressed those groups. Okay, the trial board, the administrative law judge or the retired judge will be the chair of the trial board. So that means that's the person who's going to deal with all the motions. They'll be making all the evidentiary calls. They can be writing the decisions. So the trial boards won't really need an attorney the way the other boards will, because really it's a trial judge's job to write the opinion and make all the calls for motions and evidence and things like that. And the written decision, the trial board is going to be due 45 days after their final hearing. So they have a hearing that lasts 3 days. Within 45 days of that final hearing, they got 45 days to decision. As mentioned, the next time about collective bargaining. Again, you can't change any substantive part of this state law through collective bargaining. Any questions about going to slide 10, which I'm going to get into the county law. Okay, so the county law, the real meat of the county law that was passed is CB 21, 2022. Again, I'm sure that was passed finally in July, or late June, because 45 days became effective like August 15th or August 14th, something like that. Because all county laws have to be 45 days before they get enacted. So CB 21, 2022, and also I had that as well. I'll make sure Marvin has it from the LIS system if you want to see a final copy of that. But again, for the Police Accountability Board, this is kind of what the county law does. That's in addition to what the state law says. Okay, so the number of board members is 11. The state law never said a number. Remember, the county decided our PAB is going to be 11 members. Okay, the county council selects 5 members. The county executive nominates 5 members and the chair, and all the county executive nominees are subject to council confirmation. Okay, so that's why these kind of have like in 2 groups the way the schedule worked out. Okay, but the council does 5, county that nominates 5 members and the chair, it all goes to council confirmation. I already kind of mentioned to you that before the 2022 amendments changed, before they came out, I want to say the legislation we already had in there, external and internal complaints. The thinking was that you're supposed to be looking at discipline across the board. How do you do that? You're looking at external complaints and not internal. You're not really getting a full picture. But then I guess the General Assembly read our minds and they can't take credit for it. But no, so it was made clear that the law that changed. So for the PEB, a member cannot be an active police officer, okay, an employee, elected official, or candidate for political office of the county, the state, or municipal government within the county. And remember, we got about 28 of them, okay? So the idea was to really kind of separate government employment, okay, and government political affiliation from the membership of these boards, okay? And they also cannot be a former officer, because remember, retired or former officers can be on the board. It's active that cannot be on the board. But a former officer cannot be on the board if they're one of the state's attorneys do not call list. So, and I don't know if you all know what that is, but the state's attorney decides a do not call list. So for whatever reason, they have to determine there's an issue with the officer and they don't want to call them as a witness. If they're on that do not call list, they cannot be on the PAB, okay, as a retired police officer. Yes.
School board, since it's not affiliated, are they also not allowed to be considered?
School board members?
Oh, them that's elected.
It's not elected, but it's not part of it. So I wonder, but it's still.
It's elected. Okay, going to the next page to get some additional information about the PAB that came up in the county legislation. You all probably noticed there's a public engagement process. That's a part that has to take place before you can put somebody forward for the PAB, and that goes to the council and the county executive. You all participate in that. So there's this public engagement process that has to happen. To the extent that we can, practicable, the PAB should reflect the diversity of the county. I kind of shortened this for you, but that means from a racial, gender, sexual orientation standpoint, there should be diversity. They should try to match the diversity of the county, geographical diversity. You're trying to the extent that you can, have some diversity that somewhat match the county's diversity when it comes to gender, race, sex, geography. Okay. PAB member has to be at least 21 years old. No more than one former police officer can serve on the board at one time. So even though you can have a retired officer, you can't have more than one at one time. Okay, so if you have a retired police officer, there should only be one on the board at a time. The board members have 4-year terms. With the initial board, which is who you are, you have staggered terms so that we don't have to replace a PAB all at one time. Okay, so it's generally a 4-year term, and each member can serve a maximum of 2 consecutive terms. Okay, so after this board, I don't know, I didn't look at everybody's appointment letter, but some of you probably have 2 years. I mean, Denise can answer this. Some of you probably have 2 years, some of you probably have 3 years for your first year, so that we're not changing one whole board at one time. But then whatever your terms are, you can serve a maximum of 2 consecutive terms. And of course, when you have to change the members, you go through the same process as described about nominations, public engagement process, all that. You're going to that same process starts over again. The members have to demonstrate honesty, integrity, and credibility. You cannot disqualify somebody on behalf of their immigration status as long as they can prove their identity and they have ability to work in accordance with federal laws, because you all get a stipend. So we have to have, the forms, how you do your I-9s, one of the forms that you have to fill out. We have to show that because it's illegal to pay people who don't show us, authorization that they have the authority to work in this country. Okay, so we have to have that. And for criminal history, you can't disqualify for your criminal history except if you were convicted of a crime or you have a PBJ, probation before judgment. You have to have successfully served your sentence for that conviction, or satisfy any convictions that went along with your PBJ. So if your PBJ, for example, said you got to pay restitution to the victim or whatever, you got to pay the restitution. And your probation period got to be over before you can be considered. If you had a conviction of 5 years, you have to successfully serve that 5-year conviction before you be considered. But generally speaking, the criminal history in and of itself will not disqualify somebody from being on the board. Okay, now on the next slide, this is on slide 12. These are some additional things the council could put in, the county put in, that's a little different than the state law. So when you look at this, now, let me back up a minute. If you listen to what I've been saying, it's the ACC, first it's the law enforcement agency that does the investigation, right? They turn that over to the ACC. The ACC reviews it. The ACC can ask for further investigation, or they can do some of their own, like having people come in and talk to them. Look at themselves, look at body worn camera, things of that nature, okay? Well, what we did with the county law is that when you look at your disciplinary outcomes, like, you know, when you look at, let me look at this last quarter, what's the office of the sheriff doing with the discipline? If you need to, you can review all the evidence considered by either the law enforcement agency or the ACC. You can look at that for yourself, okay? You can look at any body worn cameras. You can issue subpoenas and interview witnesses, or do other investigative techniques if you feel you need to, as you review these disciplinary outcomes. You know, does that, you all follow me? That's not the state law, that's just in the county law, okay? You can seek community feedback on policing and provide information to the community about policing matters, okay? It says meet at least quarterly or more frequently as you determine, okay? You develop rules of procedure. I know the work group kind of did a guiding document to kind of get this up for you all's consideration, but you all develop your own rules of procedure, as long as they're not inconsistent with county and state law. Okay? And that's things like, you know, your quorum, that could be all kinds of things, but like your internal working document, how you going to operate as a board. You have also the right to attend law enforcement training, subject to county approval and payment process, and that's really budget. And it's the same provisions in place for the ACC. That remember, you all don't have the provision that says you have to do the state training before you can work. And the last I talked to Wayne Silvers, right, from the NPTC, they are willing to let PAB members come to the ACC training, but they want the ACC members to get that training first. And so, for example, let's say we get a week of ACC training. I think they only have 15 seats a class, so last I heard. Yeah, but let's say arguably they got about 3 or 4 seats left. We can say, hey, they got 3 or 4 seats. Anybody want to go? Then what they were hoping to do is get like regions together at one time. So like arguably Southern County, I'm just making it up, you know, not Southern County, Southern Maryland, you know, you get Coward, Charles, you know, St. Mary in there together, so you can get them together. It's not working out that way because everybody's in a different place as far as where they are in the process. Okay, so we're shooting for, we get our people there, we're raising our hand for the first day, right, to get our ACC members in. If there's more room, and they tell us, I'm saying if, but it'll be coming to the next. Then if there's other people who can go, that they're saying you can go. This is what the ACC people in first. This is a 40-hour training. So it's a statewide training. Yeah. Yes, but they take it county by county or a group of counties at a time. Yes, yes. And any training you do is paid for your hourly rate. So whatever your hourly rate you get paid on your stipend, we're paying for the training.
I didn't really want to. But... you like this? No, I'm just messing.
Oh, they have. Oh, I can't remember that. They had things like. I heard it was quick. Other counties, I heard their members really enjoyed it. They thought it was very helpful. But it's things like I think like use of force. You know, some area like constitutional law. It's enough to cover 40 hours. I can't remember all the topics. I don't know if I was even told all the topics. I know I haven't seen all the topics. I haven't seen it, but it's basically the way I took it in, and this is me, it's like the shortened version of what the police officers getting the camera, which is the shortened version. I mean, it's a lot. I wasn't expecting. I said, like, you know these people. I really talked about. I said, you know these people work. Yeah, but that's what they set out. But I heard it was people thought it was very useful. Okay, I'm now on slide 13. With the Administrative Charging Committee, we stay consistent with the state law in our county law when it came to the ACC, except that there's a couple of things we made mandatory for the ACC that was discretionary in the state law. So, for example, if an officer is not going to be charged, the reason why the officer is not charged should be put in writing. Okay, so that's the county law wants that put in writing. And also to state whether the allegations of the officer was unfounded, not sustained, or exonerated. So basically, like either we just couldn't tell, and those are your not sustained. Your exonerated, I believe, is when they've gone to a trial board and got found not guilty, right? Found is usually the term they use when doing the investigation or doing the ACC process. They just can't tell. Like, there's a preponderance of the evidence really, and they just can't really tell the officer did or not. They're not saying they didn't do it, but there's enough evidence for them to say they did do it. So that's like the unfounded, okay? Exonerated, I believe it, I know I've seen officers, I report say exonerated before they go to a trial board, but I think the way they're interpreting this and doing this, if you went to a trial board and got found not guilty, they're gonna record that as exonerated. And then also the ACC has to record in writing. If you think whatever the officer did, the misconduct, it was a result of a failure to supervise, they want that recorded in writing by the ACC, so that those can be addressed when it goes back to law. And now moving on to trial board members, this will be well, it's kind of fast for that really. I already told you to speak about the county executive. Because we have so many law enforcement departments in this county, well, the work we came up with as a recommendation, the county executive accepted it, was because you're going to have a different trial board every time an officer wants one, wherever that officer may be, So, City of Laurel might need one, the county's going to need, and we don't know when they're going to need it, right? So what we decided was we're going to keep a panel of judges. And remember, these are your administrative law judges and your trial judges. We're going to keep a panel of judges. There's literally going to be a list of at least 10 or less. We're shooting for 10, and I always try to keep it at 10. But as a department needs to set up a trial board, literally call the county exec's office will probably, one of these are probably PED. I'm not sure how it's under the various, which office.
It'll be under the Inspector General Directive Office of Integrity.
It's under that office, and and they just going to go down the list. As a hearing comes, they're just going to go straight down the list. The one caveat is that if the agency and the police officer agree that the next person on the list they both want to skip, they can skip it. If they agree, they can skip it, but that's a one-shot deal. So you can't say skip it. And by the way, skip the next one. No, you skip the one, you're going to get the next one.
I had to fight on that one for y'all.
Okay. And that's not the state law. That's just what the county is doing. And it's needed because it's too many, it's a lot of, we don't know how many we're going to need. In a perfect world, we won't need much at all, right? Because everybody's out there doing the right thing. But in the real world, we may need them. And and it's a lot, and we're the only jurisdiction in this position that has so many, municipalities. So and I think that wasn't always considered for some of this law. I mean, I said it to Wayne Silver. I was like, I just don't think it was. I mean, this is a huge burden for our county because we have so many departments. So, and I even mentioned the arson investigators, who arguably, under the law, are law enforcement officers. Now, personally, I don't see that much come to our office with them as far as discipline, but that's another little subgroup that could come to you all's attention because they're law enforcement officers under the law. See, I'm not talking, I just talked about something. Well, another little caveat on the child boards is that the officer rank, this was the FOP amendment that was requested and the council agreed to it. The chief representative and the FOP, or whoever representing the officer, can meet. And the idea is there's some kind of random process, okay? Like whether it be a computerized process, and I think some agencies already have a computerized process where you pick names at random, or it could be like you don't have one, do some kind of Excel spreadsheet random process. But the idea is, you pick the person through that process and 4 alternates. Okay. If the police officer feels somebody for just cause shouldn't be one of the officers, or the officer or the alternate officer, if the police chief agrees, then that person can be struck. One officer. Okay. Police chief has that same right. If they think for some reason this officer won't be unbiased, whatever the reasons are, the police chief can't strike one person as well from that list. Whoever's left, the original officer and the alternates, we have an alternates because if somebody gets sick or, in case somebody can't serve for any reason, then the alternates will take over. So if you read in the law, you got to kind of read it a couple of times, but that's the idea of the process. It's whatever the department is.
Whatever the department is. So if you got 28 departments, whatever the department.
So if you only have 5 police officers in your municipality, it's a police chief. for that year. So it's that local department, but you know, they're all different. No, they're by county and they have, that was 22, and they have different provisions, so they're not covered by this. Okay, and then on the end, guys, I promise. Let's talk about the child boards. And I just put a note here in assignment 15 of some of the other legislation that county passed that was needed because of police reform. For example, CB 22 basically repealed the CCOP because pretty much those duties were somewhat more or less assumed within this board and the ACC. Okay, so it repealed the Citizen Complaint Oversight Panel. CB 23, 2022, it repealed the use of force. The police department and the county law had a use of force statute. Okay, that was repealed because the state passed a use of force statute, which everybody has to abide by. So the county's police department's use of force statute was repealed. CR, Council Resolution 9, 2022, put forth that public engagement process I mentioned, but for nominees for this board, it sets that out, that public engagement process. And then finally, CB 95, 2022, basically added members of this board and the ACC as part of the group of people who have to file financial disclosure statements. I believe you all have to do it when you have a nomination. You do it every year. Okay, so and people have to file it spelled out in the county law. So with that deal, we just add these two groups, the people that file financial disclosure statements. And that is it for me. I don't know if I blew my 30 minutes or not. Any questions? Yes.
You mentioned the municipalities. How about campus police? Are they?
Yeah.
You have
Bowie,
University
yes.
of Maryland, Bowie, and Prince George's Community College. I think all three have their own police department.
I don't think they were the needs.
University of Maryland was included, but I don't think we talked about.
You know, I want to look at the definition one more time.
They might be included, and we just never paid attention.
I mean, I think they are. The only people I know.
I'm just getting to your 28. I got to 31 real quick.
Yeah, that's a good point, though.
Yeah. Let me look at that. Yeah. If it's strictly by the law, then they would be. Yeah. But because I didn't remember.
I think they are now. I think they just nobody ever thought because they're smaller, community college and Bowie State, and we just never thought about it. But you're probably right.
Yeah. Yeah. The only thing I know the exception to are the Tri-County and the statewide.
But that's a good point.
But that's yeah.
We'll let her check.
Okay, Marva.
I'm good. That's what Marva's here for. I'm going to leave, but let me just. If you all have any other questions for Rhonda, she knows this law better than anybody else.
Rhonda, you mentioned Forest Heights. Now, how they complain has to be heard by us.
Yeah. So know what's going to happen. One, remember, it has to be police misconduct. Okay. What was just a definition to it? Okay. I'll just tell you that that's under dispute. All right. But police misconduct, and generally, to me, what it means is an interaction with a citizen that somehow has violated either the constitutional right or a state law, or a federal law. And you're talking about things like battery, assaults, false imprisonment, excessive force. You're talking those kind of things, right? So what will happen is that it will be filed either with the law enforcement agency or the PAB, okay? And then it'll be investigated by the law enforcement. So Forest Heights would investigate that, okay? And then when the investigation is done, it goes to the ACC, who gets their files, and they review the investigation. And the ACC, the Administrative Charge Committee, would decide whether or not the officer is going to be charged or not. And then if they charge,
the ACC also say, well, we don't think that the municipality did a good job in investigating.
Two things. One, they can say, you didn't do a good job, go back and do more. Right. And then the only things they have to do that in 30 days when they first get the file. Because they don't want the things to linger. I remember, I don't know if I mentioned before, you really got like a year to get through when the allegation comes to the attention of the county, whether it be the PAB, although I think it might be to the law enforcement agency. So you might file them in 3 days. But when it comes to their attention, they got a year to get through the ACC process, which means they got to do their investigation, get it to the ACC got to get through their process within 1 year. Right. The only thing that's not included in that year is the trial board and you all's review of the disciplinary outcomes. That's not a lot of time. You know, so, but, so yes, it will work that way. It will go to, yeah, it will go that way.
That includes the investigation.
Yes, that's first. Because
That's within
remember,
that year.
huh?
That's within that year.
That is, it got to get to them and the ACC.
Right.
The investigation.
Oh,
They better
absolutely.
speed up their time. That's
Well,
what I want.
Well, that's absolutely, you're correct. So the ones we have waiting, you know, for the ACC, yeah, I mean, if you lose that year, you lose a year. It's almost like the year and a day was under the LEOBR. Remember, you had a year and a day and that act came to the police department's attention. They basically charged the officer. If you miss that year and a day, it's like statute of limitations. Right. You can't discipline. So it is not a lot of time, particularly if you can't find people or things like that. And you know, I imagine it might be a little stack waiting for the ACC when they first come on because they might have some things to do. But I do know, I've seen some of the work that Denise and the staff the ACC has done. And I think they really have I mean, as paralegals, you know, investigators, things to help make the review as concise but thorough as possible. So there'll be like a summary breakdown, files put together for the ACC. You know, as that's the staff is here to help make that review as efficient but as thorough as possible. Anything else? Well, thank you for your service. And I'm gonna head out.
Well, let me I want to close up before she hits out, but just when I'll let you all, Chairman, take over. I just want to make sure you understand the organizational structure. Because I know we talked about the PAB, the ACC, and the trial board, but overseeing that, we have Denise, which is, we made up names as we went along, but no, we have Denise, which is the program administrator for the PAB. We thought you needed to have somebody to help you get the job done. Denise obviously came from the CCOP, so that was easy to move her into this role. She's doing a great job. So look at her as your conduit to get the job done. So I just like throwing things out so you know, and staff to help you all do your job. Your minutes, your meetings, all those things from the chairman will get done. And then the same thing with the ACC. We have a program administrator in the ACC at the same level as Denise that oversees that whole process with investigators, paralegals, clerical support, and those kind of things. And then the trial board is handled by the police agencies and coordinators. But what I wanted you to know is over top of this whole process, we have an inspector general that reports to the police, that reports to me, but oversees the police department. We actually took that position out of the police department for transparency. And we didn't want that position reporting to the police. So that position now is in the county executive's office reporting to me and is the inspector general for the police department and does all kinds of things to audits and whatever they need to do to look at the police. So not just the PAB, the ACC, but we also have an inspector general that's looking at day-to-day operation of the police department. Now that position's vacant now. That was Donnell Turner, who went to be a big bad circuit court judge and left me hanging. So I'm now your inspector general temporarily until we get a new inspector general, which we hopefully have that person hired in the next month or so. As far as the inspector general is also the director of the Office of Integrity, Compliance, and Police Accountability. That means all the Police Accountability Board, Administrative Charging Committee, and Trial Board comes under this person. Now, at the end of the day, it doesn't mean this person is going to tell you all what to do. That's what the board does. It's just that from an organizational structure in the county, we need to have a clear process for budget, personnel, how do you get things done? So Denise, Isabel, and the staff reports to this person, even though she still reports to you as a board. But if Denise gets out of line, we got to have somebody discipline Denise. And it ain't gonna be me.
And Barry, can I just add one thing too? Is like so, most legal, well, all legal services contracts for the county under the charter. Right. Anybody giving legal advice or legal service for the county is supposed to come under the county service office. Okay, that's in the charter. What we did in this case, which means when we do a legal services contract, generally the invoices and all that come to me to review, like it's in the contract. What we did in this case, I'm not the administrator of it. Denise is.
Right.
for your legal counsel. And I'm not looking at the invoices, Denise is, okay? The only thing Marvin Joe has to come to me about is if they plan to take action or like some kind of litigation action, which I really can't imagine that would be for you. Who knows, you know, right. But if you take litigation action, because all litigation also comes under me. And if there's going to be like an issue that there may be a conflict, that's more than advice and consult. It's not about, I can't tell Marvin Joe what to do. She can't tell me what to do. And we don't really have that for a lot of attorneys, right. That represent different agencies and boards, but we have for yours to make sure that independence is clear, because my office represents the police department. And, you know, so we wanted to make sure we can show from top to bottom, you had independent legal advice. So
and we looked at that from the beginning. I thought it was important. When we talked earlier, we thought it was important that both boards have their own legal representation, just to have a conduit of getting legal advice on these type of things. So really what I want to do is just let you understand the structure. And at the end of the day, obviously, the boards, the inspector general, all reports to the county executive's office, which comes through me. So hopefully when everybody's in line, I don't have to deal with this no more. You know what I'm saying? This has been a long time coming. Yeah, the IG has a staff too. The IG has a clerical support and investigator. And then he or she will do whatever needs to be done. I mean, I've got a couple complaints I've already trying to handle as Inspector General today. I'm trying to hold them off a little bit until the new Inspector General, but we're getting to them. So,
and if I'm not mistaken, for usually the county executive can remove people from boards, right. For this board, the council has to approve it.
Right.
So there's no removal. And I came up with 2/3. I don't know if it's a super majority or not, but she does, like with other boards, she can remove people. That not with this board. It has to have council. The county executive and the county council are both participatory and invested in the people serving the board. So it was like a county government together putting this effort.
So look, I'm just going to close by saying that one, also your budget. We put together a budget that we thought was the best budget. But you all the experts now. Once you get running, if you think you need more of this, more of that, you need to let Denise know through the budget process on, hey, they didn't give us enough money for this. They didn't give us a position for this. Those are things that we need to consider, that you all need to consider, not me. I mean, we put it together, but at this point, it was like thrown against the wall and we came out with something. We feel pretty good about it, to be honest. When you look across the state of what everyone's doing, we feel very comfortable with the process we put in place. But we might have missed something, you know. So once you all get up and running, go for it. Let Denise know it gets in your budget. You have a separate budget. We pay you out of that budget. You get a stipend, and so that's where we are. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I have a question. Feedback on what Denny said. So, is the investigator position with the IG vacant as well?
No.
And does the ACC also have an investigator?
Yes.
And is that
the ACC has 2 investigators.
Okay, that person works for you?
No, none of those. Let me put it this way: the whole police accountability board process comes under the county executive's office. When you look at that process, the IG reports to me, which means the IG also is a director of the Office of Integrity, Compliance, and Police Accountability, which means you have the board, the Police Accountability Board, the Charging Committee, and the Trial Board. All that position is doing is coordinating the process so that she has someone to go to if y'all have a big political decisions that need to be made. But that position is not directing this board or the ACC what to do. That's why you have a board. Does that help?
Yes. I was talking about the investigators, not.
No, the investigators the investigator, there's one investigator in the Inspector General's office, and there's one clerical support. That's just support for the Inspector General. It has nothing to do with PAB, ACC, or nothing.
So the 2 investigators with the ACC
are only for the ACC, not with the PAB.
But are they hired? Are they full-time?
Yes, they're full-time. They're full-time. Yeah, those 2, what we did is we looked at each function, and the ACC has 2 investigators, 2 paralegals, and administrative clerk and a program administrator. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you. With the ACC, we don't know if that's enough staff. I'm just being honest. I mean, you know, you all, we felt very comfortable where the PAB was. You were all more of a policy oversight. The ACC, getting all those investigations from 28 municipalities, including Prince George's and the sheriff, I don't know that. That's what we need when they get up and running. Come back and tell us. Do we need to increase the budget? Do we need to hire additional staff? So, but we don't know that right now. I hope that helps. Yeah. So no, I made it clear to the county executive and the CAO and the budget officer. We threw these positions up against the wall, not technically, but you know, we thought it through around the table and we listened to other counties, and we don't know if this is going to be enough, but this is a starting point, but we can come back. So I hope that helps. Any questions from me? No, you don't get a raise unless I give you a raise. No. You know, if y'all think you need a raise, let her know. Goes in the budget.
And I can't be glad.
But no, good luck to all of you. And you know, I'll be around. I'm looking forward to y'all taking over. And the chairman, long process, he knows I've been taking a whip. All right. Congratulations, everybody.
If the chair doesn't mind, I'd like to go directly to Ms. Walker because she's been here a while.
Yes, please.
And let her get her presentation.
Oh, that's fine. Thank you. It's a hard act to follow from the attorney Weaver here. So bye. So I just wanted to go over some things about our office and some of the responsibilities that you guys will have too as boards and officials and employees. One of the things is that in 2012 for us, County Council passed legislation to create the Office of Ethics and Accountability, pretty much for identifying fraud, waste, abuse, illegal acts, and also ethics violations. Ethics violations include, I have my here, sorry. There's 5 prohibited conduct and interests that are included in the code, and we can go over that a little bit later. But the specific goals and authority of our office are found in the sections 298 through 2-309 in county code. Our mission is to conduct investigations and provide information to appropriate law enforcement officials, conduct joint investigations and projects with the Office of Audits and Investigations, and also other agencies. We do enlist other agencies to assist us if that's their, you know, I would say they're just like OHRM. If it's an OHRM issue, we may send it to OHRM for investigation, and they'll complete that and send it back to us. If it's a referral, a hard referral where we have nothing to do with it, nothing in our code, nothing in what we do, we send it straight to them, and they may or may not, you know, respond to us and give us the outcome of it. But it's definitely just a referral. We have a lot of those. The executive director has 2 terms. Our executive director now, her term is up. She will be leaving as of December, I would say. The other one, the new one starts December 5th. So her last day is December 5th. So her 2 terms are up. Our mission is we conduct investigations, provide, like I said, we make recommendations to the county executive and the county council to promote efficiency, accountability, and integrity in county government. We also have a board. Our board is the Board of Ethics. We provide support to the Board of Ethics, which is really responsible for interpreting the Code of Ethics, ensuring reporting of financial disclosure statements. And speaking of that, you guys have already filed one, I believe, to the on the board. You will have to do that annually. One of the provisions in the code talks about secondary employment. So what the county says is secondary employment is what you're going to say is your primary employment. But it cannot be a conflict between what you're doing here and what you're doing at work. So those are things that you have to fill out a secondary employment form. You guys will get training, ethics training from us at some point soon. I'll navigate that with your chair, and we can talk about that either in person or something via Zoom. Our other missions are we make, like I said, we make recommendations to the county executive and county council to promote efficiency and accountability and integrity in county government, provide support. We also receive and investigate complaints of alleged abuse, fraud, and deficiencies in county government. And with those, sometimes we do what we call just investigative reports. So those are some of the things that we can look at and look into ourselves. We don't need a complaint to look in some of those things. If we see a deficiency in the county somewhere, then we can initiate an operation to look at the call. And we've done some of those so far in the last year. We have plenty of resources on our web portal. All the links are there for you to look at, all the procedures, codes, the administrative procedures, guidelines. And I want to talk about too the five prohibited conduct and interests that are in the code. I think that is important for all boards and commissions, political affiliates in the county, and county employees. Secondary employment is one. Gifts is another. Honorariums is another. Post-employment and use of prestige of office. So those are defined in the code. You guys can either look at the code, call me, I can give you a copy of it, if you want, or a definition. But I think that's something that you guys would want to look into to make sure that you independently don't get yourself caught up in anything that you don't want an ethics complaint sent to us about, because that's a serious complaint and a serious matter. We talked about financial disclosure statements. Again, they're filed once a year. If you have any trouble entering the portal, call me, call my analyst, or call anybody in the office. Anybody can help you. But don't forget to hit submit, because a lot of people forget that. It's due in April 3rd, on April 3rd. Right, so April 30th is the deadline. Anything after that, there are fees, $2 a day for late fees. So
we get a notice or something.
We bug you all the time. We will start sending emails out immediately, starting at the beginning of next year. Yeah, sometimes later than that, a month or so. But we do let everyone know. We have your email. You have county email. If you don't, we'll let you know. Okay, so you'll get a county email saying, hey, it's time, or email blast. They'll say, hey, it's time. It's that time. You can start filing now. If there's anything missing, we look at it, we review it, we call you, tell you, you can fix it at any time. You can get back in there. A lot of people have a hard time with the portal. We're trying to make changes. We have made changes in the past. Again, you can always call our phone. And we don't really need to talk about who must file, because you have to file, right? The board does grant some exemptions, but you guys are not one. Generally, you file online. If, like I said before, if you're having any problems, we will allow you to fill out a paper form, and that's limited. So it's not, if you filed one already and it's in our system, then you know how to do it. I don't know how you guys file electronically. Yeah, okay. That's the best way to do it, because we've got it in there and we've got a record. We do put the paper ones in there ourselves. Show as well. Secondary employment. The county says that looks at your primary employment as secondary. which is to say that this is your primary employment. So anything outside of this is considered secondary employment. I know it sounds crazy, but that's the way it is, right? Because we look at conflicts of interest. So if you're working on this board, this is police accountability. If you're a police, obviously you don't belong on this board. So, you know, or working in some kind of capacity like that, because you're actually making decisions for police. And so you could have some kind of conflict, either not really seeing conflict or, you know, something like that. But we look at all secondary employment. So if you don't file for secondary employment, it's either going to be on your financial disclosure statement, and then we'll ask you to file. But you do need to file secondary employment. And all of this, again, can be found on our website as well. We make recommendations to the county. You can see on our website, again, we have our PDF of all of our recommendations. A lot of things that come in that we get do not belong to us. They may belong to the police. They may belong to other agencies, park and planning, the school board. We have very good relationships with them. We will refer them to them and don't need any responses back. So we don't really keep it. We do track those that we send out, but we don't necessarily need to know what they did because they're not in the county. So it's just board, commission, officials, and we do track the registered lobbyists in the county. The lobbyists have to file annual reports, and they have to register with our office. You will also see on our website as well the lobbyist annual reports and who's lobbying. So we've had some issues with, if you go online or our board of ethics, you'll see some things that we've had. We can stop people from lobbying if they don't file their registration or if they don't file their final with us, with the county. They will not be able to lobby in the county. Ethics advice. So ethics advice we give to all employees, boards, and commissions. So if there's anything that you have a question about or that you feel like, hey, I don't know if this is right that I'm doing or whatever, please, by all means, come to us first. We'll help you out. We'd rather see you come to us beforehand than see you in trouble without it. And we'll say, yeah, that's fine. That's no problem. You know, or we'll say, we need to kind of, you know, look at that, see what we can do that, you know, you can do it, right? So we'll work with you on that. Any questions so far? No? Okay. Any advice, this is really important. Any advice that you come to us for is prospective, which means you cannot have done it and then ask us, is it okay that I did it? It's prospective only behavior, only. Yes.
Generally speaking, what does that turnaround time? We reach out for
ethics advice.
Yeah.
We can. Well, we have a very small office, so we started out with. Well, initially we had 6 people. We had myself, compliance officer, executive director, legal counsel, compliance analyst, and investigator. So that's 5, and admin. So turnaround time is usually 5 days. So it's really quick, but it depends on what our load is. But we try to get to you as soon as we can. If it's something really important and urgent that you need right away, I would say call us, put your complaint in, and then call us. Because we can give it to you either email or phone if it's something that we had one the other day where one of the, I think it was the director, and it was something really simple. It was about a gift. And she said, you know, she had received a gift. What could she do? So I said, you can give it away. You can throw it away. You can reimburse the donor for it. I forget the last piece. You can donate it to a charity or something. But keep in mind that if you receive something and you do give it to a charity, or if you do you know, trashing it, you can't really say you trashed it. We don't know that you trashed it, but make sure you get a receipt or something like that. Because people will call in complaints because people find out a lot of things. You can appeal informal ethics advice if you get something that you don't really like. You can appeal it. Very rarely does it happen. Our legal counsel is very good. Fraud, waste, and abuse. What is fraud? The definition of fraud is a misrepresentation of a material fact, knowingly or with reckless indifference to the truth in order to obtain a benefit or payment to which one would not normally be entitled. So just be careful about what you accept. And if you have any questions, please, we are here to answer your questions. We're here from 8:30 to 5. A lot of nights I'm here till 8 o'clock. So call that main number. I may pick up. Misconduct and fraud and abuse. Abuse is the intentional, wrongful, or improper use of county resources. That can include excessive or improper use of one's position in a manner contrary to its rightful or legally intended use. Okay? That's pretty much it that I have for you guys. I do have some pins for you, so if you want to pass these around, you can keep these. They have our phone number on them.
Is that a gift?
Yeah. No, it's not a gift. It's not a gift. No, it's not a gift. It's a trick.
Okay. All that how you work, right?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Yep. Thank you. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. So it depends also, right? It depends on who you are, who you got it from, how much it was. You know, you don't want to get your director of your CCOP director of integrity and accountability. You don't want to get $100 gift card from her, right? That's gonna look crazy. What is she giving you a card? What are you unless you had a raffle or something? And that we don't really do around here. So I think that's it. If you guys have any questions, we're here. Like I said, we're here 8:30 to 5. Typically, somebody's always in the office to answer any questions. We've got the analyst. You guys took our investigator. Still a little salty about that, but no, it's okay. He went to a good place. So yeah, if you have any questions, if you have any personal questions or independent questions you want to ask outside of this, please feel free to call us and we can answer that. We will prioritize you guys and give you, time because you're new. You want to know what you can do, what you can't do. If you want to email it, you can, or if you want to go through the portal, you can. We try to get ready. Yep. I think that's it. Any questions?
I want to thank Mr. Walker.
Yeah, thank you so much.
No problem.
I think I could stand to.
Look, I'm usually still at work around this time of the year, so. All right, thank you so much. I hope you guys, I wish you good luck, and hopefully you guys can learn a lot and do a lot of good for the county. Thank you. You're welcome.
The chair doesn't matter on behalf of everybody flattering the Constitution. Do we need to take a break now? Or you want to keep going?
Yeah, I think that's important.
But during this break, we'll take a 15 minute.
No need to do
that. Well, 10-minute break. During this break, Tansy Allen will also give computers to the people that she didn't give them to, starting with Mr. James.
So, let's see. Mr. James, Mr. Burby, Mr. Sanchez, you are holding, please.
You gotta turn it in.
Okay, so again, I want to apologize for being late. I was actually getting ready to walk into the building of the Citizens Police Academy. I had something to do over there tonight, got my days mixed up for one. I want to apologize for that. Thank you, Denise, for reminding me of that. Next on the agenda is Marva Joe. Marva Joe her presentation, and she's going to do something kind of brief, but I mean, you can take as much time as you need, and then give us the meat and potatoes the next one. We got quite a bit of things to go through, like we have to decide what our next meeting, and to get through most of the admin stuff, we're going to have another meeting very, very soon. So we'll decide that, and we'll talk about that after Marva Joe.
Okay, thank you. And let me just say that in the interest of time, I'm not going to do the whole training. I know that makes you very sad. But what I also want to say, I just got the contract on Friday. So I don't have a computer, I don't have a card, I don't have anything. So I would like a little bit more time to be able to be thoughtful. But the reason I do want to say a couple of things about the Open Meetings Act is because the CCOP, which was the precursor to this group, two things were very different. One is that we were dealing with discipline, which at the time was not subject to the Open Meetings, therefore personnel issues. The other thing, now we did have some policy discussions which would have been subject to the Open Meetings Act. The other thing that will be different for us and the ACC is that under what used to be the personnel matters in general were closed session activities or discussion. Now with the new legislation, they repealed that. So personnel matters are actually open. What that means in most cases, and we're still having some discussion about this, I don't think let's say there was something that was a personnel matter. You're not going to get it until it's past that closed position. So anything you get would be something that the general public would get. So it would be subject to the Open Meetings Act. The other thing I'll say before I go through a couple of things that I will do is that I'm going to always err on saying everything is open, even if I think it could be closed. I think there are going to be a lot of eyes on the PAB and the ACC, and I think it is better to err on the side of transparency than to err on any other side. And that would be, for example, there are things that you'll see in the act that will say designed to evade. And so we have to make sure, even if not intended, that we haven't done something designed to evade. That might be what I've seen, for example, we have a quorum in the full meeting, and there have been groups that will have subcommittee meetings, and then say those subcommittee meetings are not subject to. Well, they will be in this group. As long as there's a quorum, then we will make everything subject to, because I just don't want to put anybody on this in jeopardy. So there are three pieces that we fall within, and I'm going to just kind of go through. One is there are three factors to say whether or not you're applicable. One is if you fall within the definition of public body. I'll go into that later. The next one. The second is if you are meeting. And then the third one is if you are performing a certain function. Once you meet those three, then you are subject to the Open Meetings Act. So what we will do next time is we'll go through what that means for each one of those. The other thing we're going to be talking about next time is really the format and content of the meeting notices, which is very important. There are a lot of ways you can make sure that you meet that content format requirement. The other thing is making sure, which we did for this meeting, that the information comes out in an adequate amount of time to give people enough. And I think, I'm not sure, but it goes on the county's website.
Yes,
right?
it's on the county's homepage under meeting, boards and commissioners meetings or something like that tab.
And if you all then decide to have a set meeting, that there are ways to keep it on there. And standardize everything so people know when it's coming. The other thing that we were talking about it today about access. And so there are 3 ways that we will talk about next time about access to a meeting. One is in person, as we have here, the other is virtually, which you see a lot more since COVID. And the third one is to act as if you're meeting. And so if it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, they're going to say it's a duck. And so we'll talk about the nuances of that, even though you might not call it quote unquote a meeting. One of the things we were looking at when we walked out was the space, because this is not our space. We were trying to see whether or not there'd be enough space if people wanted to attend in person. And if we have in person, whether or not we would make provision for those who might want and don't want to do it virtually, make it available. And there's some people who just don't like virtual.
Are you saying the public?
Yeah. So that they don't want to just do it on the virtual election. So we'll talk about that, and our chair and Denise will kind of talk about what we want to do. The other thing we will talk about, and I can think of so few instances, whether we have a closed meeting. And so we'll go through the criteria for closed meetings and how you have to do it, when you can do it, and then once you've done it, what you have to do after it. The next one is the meeting documents. So after each of the meetings, we'll talk about the notice, we'll talk about the minutes, the timing for the adoption minutes, those kind of things. So we'll go through that process. And then the last two is that the guidance and training. So we are subject, most of this, some of the stuff you'll see, and some of this stuff is new because there has been some legislative changes to the Open Meetings Act. And so there may be some opportunities to get some training on some of the new requirements of the Open Meeting Act. So we'll go through kind of that. And they have what they call a compliance board. And the compliance board is really the ones who do recommendations and do trying to decide interpretations. And I've noticed in the updated, because the legislative sessions, some of the things have not, legislation, some of the things have not gone forward. They're going to go forward. But the only guidance that we have are from old court cases for the compliance board. So as we move through this process, things may change, but we'll go through that as well. And then the final thing is really training. And there are a number of ways that if you want to get more training after we do this on the Open Meetings Act, Office of Attorney General has it, University of Maryland, MACO, MMI, and I think the Board of Education has a program. So if any of you all are interested in that, then we could make some time to be able to do that. But again, I will probably get on your nerves about this, because what I don't want to happen is people suing us for saying that we're not transparent. And so I think it is so important that we understand it all, each one, and not just me making that kind of counsel, so that we make sure that there will be no criticism to the extent for the way that we conduct it and any decisions that follow. So with that, that's a high level overview. You'll hear some of this stuff again next time, so forgive me for that. And you will get cute little what are they called, slides that you can keep in your bag and in your book. And then I'm always available to answer questions.
So, do you attend every meeting?
No. I come. And you know, you all are. This has nothing to do with what I'm talking about, but you know, Mr. Stanton and Ron is talking about the committee. You all are lucky to be on the PAB, because the thought of the ACC and the amount of work and how hard it's going to be to interpret that many Lennox, this one is going to be a lot.
Yeah.
And so we get a chance to do, or you all get a chance to do some really long-term thinking about things and have deliberation. So, you know, I had a chance to be both, and I said, I take this one. So I'm really excited, one, to meet all of you and then to be able to work and do some things that will be good for the county, that will make our residents proud of us.
With that, thank you.
Thank you all for that. I mean, coming to your town, and like Denise, I know you're next up on the industry.
Well, I'm going to try to do this quickly. Most of what I want to talk about is in your binder under the yellow tab. There are some forms. Again, I will send you these if you want the electronic version of the forms I need you to complete and get the information back to me. The most important form in here is the one that looks like this. This is your mechanism for getting paid. This allows me to get a vendor number for you. And when I process your payments, I would use that vendor number to process payments. I can't process any until this form has been submitted and you have been assigned a vendor number. The next form is this one, which is the board profile form. We're going to do a board page on the web page. We don't have a website, we have a web page. We're going to do a board form on the web page, and we want to get as much information, maybe 2-3 paragraphs about you, but we want you to tell us what information you'd like to have on there. We will have to edit. We don't need long sentences. We don't need dissertation. We know everybody's sitting here great morning. So but just give us a snapshot. We may not use all of it, but at least it gives us something to start with. The next thing, I already told you about the bathrooms. The code to the PAB door. And we will, at the end of the evening, if everybody is still awake, at the end of the evening, we'll walk down. I'm sure exactly where the PAB space is. This is the administrative charge room. The conference room that we have right now, the furniture that they deliver is different from the furniture we need. So we're meeting here, and so we can get furniture to accommodate everybody at the table. So I will show you, but if you would take a pen and write this number down. The code. Oh, thank you. Thank you. See? Nice to have people who got your back. Good, very good catch. Very good. Our contact information is in here. We will be late. Under the red tab, the PAB goals, and these goals were just developed this year because we had to have some goals to begin the year. From this point on, you guys will be developing the goals for us. So these are the goals that we're working for this year up until June 3rd. Then you heard them talk about the guidance document. Also under the red, orange. Under the orange tab is the guidance document. This document has, these 13 pages have January to end of October worksheet. Just for these 13 pages. But this is not about. This is kind of your rules of operation. You look over these, somewhere down the line, several meetings down the line, you will look at this and you will determine if what changes need to be made, what needs to be added, what needs to be fleshed out, and develop your own operating rules. I think. Oh, proposed training. Now this time is really under the red, not training. You have the ethics and accountability done today on the briefing. You have the well, this page here about the Open Meetings Act is just referring you to the manual that Marvin's going to talk about. There's no substantive information there. But there's another section under there called proposed training. At some point, you guys are going to have to tell me what you're going to be training. And this is some of the stuff that we have looked at other boards and commissions in this area, and these are some of the trainings that they're having. But another page is the NACO Association's oversight webinar. I put the web page on there where you can actually go to this site, and these are clickable. And you know, visit some of these sites and see some of the training that NACOL has actually done. NACOL is National Association for the Oversight of Law Enforcement. It is the largest professional body for people involved in oversight of law enforcement. It was actually, yeah, they have a conference every year somewhere in the early fall. It was in Texas, I can't remember, Dallas or Fort Worth or something like that this year. NACOL was actually chartered here in the town, across the street, the building right across the street. It is now an organization with over 250 oversight professionals over the community. So the next, after the NACOL seminars is NACOL's recommended training and orientation. Just to give you guys an idea of what NACOL, the professional organization, is recommending that you be trained on. Some of this applies, some of this doesn't, but it gives you an idea of what, you know, what training is being done, and you can begin to crystallize what it is that you want to be trained on. And
I just have another question. Can we as a group leadership to NACOL, or are we members?
we are, this organization is a member of NACOL.
The PAB.
Mm-hmm. But you're welcome to apply as an individual.
No, we haven't already. I just didn't.
Yeah, but the organization is a member of NACOL and will be everywhere. Okay. The last thing I want to talk about is the parliamentary procedure. This is just kind of a brief overview of parliamentary procedures for boards and groups. We will have parliamentary training later, and it was based on Robert's Rules of Order, new revised 12th edition. I think it was revised in 2021, and it takes into account virtual meetings as well. So I'm not about to go over everything. I just wanted to give you an overview of what was actually in your package. And I did have a look from the local paper. Oh, meeting space. As Marvin said, we want to accommodate the public. We couldn't accommodate the public this time. So this time the meeting invitation didn't have a physical location to cut down on the number of people that might show up, because we just couldn't control that. We're going to do, we're going to look at, what we're going to do is we're going to advertise the meeting, ask for people to register, and based on the registration, determine, you know, where we can meet, whether we can meet in, we'll have to meet here, the PAB space, and there's a larger room in the middle. But we're going to try to conduct all the meetings here in this building on this floor. If something happens, blows up in the news and it gets to there, we may have to go to Wayne Curry building, one of the largest. So you got the second side out already. That is it for me. Do you have any questions that I can't answer? Any that I can?
No. I forgot to mention, at the next week, we will also be asking you to sign a confidential agreement.
And just to reiterate what Marvin said, this information that you're going to get in the case, by the time you get the case concluded. Now, on the front end, we will share with you some of the complaints that we get in. They can drop complaints off with us, but they can also file them with the police department. The ones that come to us, we will be sharing that we've got them. And at that point, that information is confidential. Where confidentiality ends is once the case has been has a disposition and they've sent it to us, and that is so long confidential.
And also a conflict of interest policy.
And that is something that Marvin and I talked about how we need to put in the guidance document. Mm-hmm. Well, conflict of interest is in there, something else that wasn't in there. Confidentiality. That is it for me. I don't have anything unless you all have some questions. Did Tangia or Ashley anything that you all want to say that I might have missed? No?
I have a couple questions about this form.
Go ahead, Nick. Somebody else may have something.
Well, just are there certain things that I don't know what to check and what not to check on? So am I adding a new SAP vendor?
I need and he's asked a good question. What I need you to fill out for me is everything from the line that says W9. See the one beginning at 59? Down.
Okay.
So all of them now have to be wired. Everything is wired.
No, everything isn't wired. If you want your, you can select whether or not you want your money going to for wire. If you don't put it there, they're going to mail it to the addresses you put on it. Now, some of you, well, three of you in here probably already have vendor numbers. I need to find out if their vendor numbers will be reassigned to you.
If they do they just reactivate?
Yeah, I'll have to find out that for the people who may have vendor numbers already. But again, this is real important because this is how I get the number to pay you. When you send in your invoice to me, I turn it into a request for payment, and the vendor number tells them who to pay, how to pay, and where to pay.
Yeah. Do you need these back, or can we email it to you?
I'm going to send, and then repeat, I think I said this already. Most of this, I am going to send to you electronically. So this form will come to you electronically. Now that emergency contact information form is in there, please fill it out, because if anybody drops in here, I don't know CPR, I don't know scream run. And I don't think I'm being in good shape to tell anybody what to do with you.
So where
I can okay, well, I'll turn it back over to the chief.
Thank you. First, let me we're going to adjourn at 9 o'clock. Be respectful of everyone's time. So this is a long meeting, and I think at the second meeting we'll be able to get through it a little bit sooner. So if everybody's okay with adjourning at 9 o'clock. Okay. Danny told me to introduce myself, so I do apologize. The reason I'm wearing a mask tonight is I had a little sinus drainage. I took a test, but I just wanted to make sure, for the sake of everyone's safety, that I'll keep the mask on. Just to make sure everybody is comfortable. I don't want the chair to be the one to give everybody COVID. So just to take the precaution. Again, my name is Kelvin Hall. I am the chair of the County Executive Board. This board. I anticipate that this is going to be an exciting time. We're going to do great things for the county. I've worked with a couple of the people in here before. I call Denise the keeper of the records. She really tells me everything to do. I mean, everything goes through Denise. So if we have any questions about anything administrative, and I know now we have Ashley and Sandy as well. So I'll be bugging them just as much. But, I anticipate us doing some great things, getting to know one another. And just from previous experience dealing with the previous CCOP, we had very, very robust discussions. One of the things I think is very important is for us to always respect each other's opinion. That's the most important thing. Everybody's entitled to opinion. That's why we're here. So we must understand that we need to respectfully, if we disagree respectfully. The quorum must be professional at all times. So with that being said, and really once we get past this, I just see us, in a pretty discussion. We'll do things according to the Robert's Rules of Orders, but it'll go pretty smoothly.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Regarding the vacancy, do we have any projected date?
Anywhere. I don't know. Beginning of mid-January. Council won't be back. So the person has been selected, but they have to go through the council confirmation council. They reset.
I was wondering what age. Good question. So right now we're moving to the PAB Administrative Charge Committee and Travel nominees. Denise jump in at any time. So we have to discuss the qualifications of that nominee, the process and the timeline as well. So Denise, do you have applications?
We got in that the county executive apparently put out a call for applications for the administrative charge committee. She selected her 2 people from however many applications she got, and she sent us the remainder to select from. I will be sending you guys that information electronically so you can review those applications. But tonight you all need to at least begin to think about what you're looking for in your nominee. What is it that you want? Yes, sir.
I thought when we did the swearing, we had 2 people.
You did.
That you swore in as charging. Who were those 2?
Those were the 2 administrative charging committee selections that the county executive made. Okay. The administrative charging committee has 5 people. Okay. 2 of them come from the county executive, 2 from the PAB, and the chair or his designee also serves on the administrative charging committee.
So the council has been nominate 2 people.
No, the county executive. The council doesn't have an selection on this on the administrative charging committee at all.
You said the ones that be elsewhere was from where?
From the county executive.
Okay, the other 2 where they're from.
You got the PAB.
Okay, all right, okay.
You mean we select?
Yeah, you guys as a group will select according to the legislation. You select two people for the board. You're not nominating it, you're selecting.
And is that based only on the applications that we already have?
That's based upon the applications that you have, because like I said, she did a call for applications for the administrative charging committee. I think somebody named Bill Scott, I believe was his name, and Natalie P.
So we're going to get copies of the CVs, the ones we're going to nominate.
I'm going to send you copies of the resumes,
the
pool from which you will select your nominee.
Well, what were the requirements of the?
That's what I'm saying. You all need to, as a body, decide what you were looking for in your nominee for this particular.
The 2 have already been appointed, so I'm saying what were the criteria?
She had her own criteria. I don't know what her criteria was. But you have an opportunity to decide what your nominee looks like. Or you can just take the book, throw it up and grab it.
Does the chair or his nominee
the nominee, the chair or his designee, that has to be a member, from the current membership of the board. And I don't think that if I can't go to today, you go tomorrow kind of thing. And then we rotate. I think the chair has to decide he's going to do it or he's going to turn it over to one of you.
I'll just put it up there.
We'll have okay, so as Denise said, we have to go over the desired qualifications. And I mean, we can start a discussion now, but I think what's important is if we get everybody's email address to start sending out email. And it would be important to me. My email address can be the same for the previous speaker.
Your county email will be the same. The email that I've been sending things to everybody with whatever email you use in your confirmation process.
But I think moving forward, I think once we get that established, it's good to send everything that's corresponding to the DAE and the HCC, whatever we're doing for our county moving forward, to make sure that everything is done legally. So, yes.
And you have
yes.
And you guys, the top sheet, yes, has your email address on there.
I'm sorry. Does everybody have their computer?
No, these Kelvin, Mr. O'Neill, Ms. Bryant don't have it yet.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. So we can start that discussion, and also we have to do the timeline. So does anybody right now have anything they want to throw out as qualifications, what we want to look for? Yes, ma'am.
I do want to say that the goal is to have this person in place as soon as these people in place as soon as possible. And since you don't have to do any advertising, that cuts about 2 weeks off the time frame. So we're hoping that you guys can have somebody selected by mid-December.
Oh, that's good.
So may I ask, is when the legislation, does it have any requirements at all?
Other than being a resident of town and not a felon.
Definitely the age requirement.
21, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with
21, yeah. So that's
You have the legislation here, the blue packet that is in your pocket. We got about 15 applications. It says the composition of the ATC, the administrative charging committee shall consist of 5 members to include the chair of the board or another member of the board as designated by the chair. 2 civilian members who are not members of the board nominated by the county executive, confirmed by the county council. 2 additional citizens who are not members of the board but are appointed by the board. Appointment to the ATC shall serve 3-year terms, except that the term of the initial members will be staggered. Prior to serving, all members must complete training, independent counsel. Candidates for ACC membership shall not be excluded from consideration or disqualification on the basis of immigration status, as long as applicants can prove identity, work authorization in accordance with federal law and criminal history, except that any person who has been convicted or received a probation before judgment for any crime under the federal law. I think this is basically what Rhonda said, but other than that, there are no specific requirements in terms of education. I think the age is covered by the county board nomination process.
I know that's going to take some thought process, but does anybody have anything they want to start off with?
I have a question. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I thought a good approach might be to think about knowledge and skills. I don't know if I have recommendations on what those would be, but I think those are 2 ways to compartmentalize what recommendations we might want to make as far as preliminary standards we want to set for the type of people we want to hire. Experience would be another category. Obviously, I would initially think investment might be beneficial.
You repeat the second one, you said knowledge and skills, and what was the second one?
Experience.
I just want to suggest that you look at what some of the other administrative charges, what some of the other police accountability boards around the state have done, and their minutes are posted. Anne Arundel County, Montgomery County, Howard County, Howard, and they have some very extensive minutes about their discussions and the kinds of things that they did to select their membership.
Anyone else?
I think there should be at least some time period around residency requirement. It doesn't have to be 10 years, but I mean, it's minimally a couple of years to reside in the county.
Will that be one of the resume? They had more research. But we say investigative, not people may not have the research or something like that.
Registered nurse or something like that. It's kind of hard to plan for them.
For me, I'm hearing a lot of the soft skills versus the hard skills. Some of those things I can't assess off of a resume, your availability or residency. So I don't know if we have to look more at the hard skills and then taking into consideration some of those other soft skills. How do we then make that assessment if someone has that capability? And I think that may go to what is the process then? So that we understand that someone, if we're making that appointment.
Yeah, see, it's kind of if the applications have already been submitted, then a person may not have addressed, the things that we would consider. Yeah. So I don't know. It's kind of
right, but I think that speaks to the process where we can bring them in potentially. Because I hate to think that we would appoint someone's decision report to council and not even have a face-to-face with them and a conversation.
You did it like you did us.
Sure. Exactly.
And I think on that process, we should, probably we have to check to see if we will be able to do that virtually. If we want to do multiple people, I think that would be an easier process at that point to do it virtually. And then I think from the people that we decide we want to pull from them, maybe we'll bring them in face-to-face and set them back. That's just how we got to think about that.
So we set the questions up like it was just ask those people.
Yeah.
Like a questionnaire prior to
Yes.
a thorough review of that person, not questionnaire all the applicants and say, you know, how do you feel? Whatever framework we come up with tonight.
And I would think that it would be good to do a virtual anyway. One, we can be recorded again, so the public can understand the process, put it out as well.
I would recommend that perhaps we have a screening process first, whatever that is. And then move to interview our finalists.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. So we're going to pick from that. So I think maybe we can develop the questions, kind of look at them, discuss it. We'll come back and meet with it, and then we'll vote on who we think we should pull, the ones who come in to interview, and then at that point, we'll move forward with that. Yes, ma'am.
Screening process, what do you have in mind?
So as we build out, looking at our skills and things that we can see as tangible things that we want to base our evaluation and criteria, we can sort of come up with some sort of standard or whatever we want to do. That way to evaluate, the candidates. But once we do that, we can kind of eliminate individuals who don't meet the criteria for whatever reason. To the degree that we can make it standardized, that'll make it more transparent and equitable. But just for the sake of time, some of those things, it's just the amount of time we want to invest in a scoring sheet, something like that. But again, it's going to be important that we establish standards, skills that we want to evaluate people on, so we can weight what's most important to us. So if it were research and investigative background, maybe that's the highest weight we score against that. Some other things might have a lower score, lower weight.
The only reason I asked is because the applications that we got were screened by the county executive office. We got them because they screened. I just wanted to know what kind of screening you're talking about.
Okay, so I really have a little bit of a concern about that because you said that the county executive put out an announcement for application. I mean, what was there a widespread, other than just the county council's?
No, it was the same way that it was advertised for the PAB.
Except that the council had the opportunity, the county council had the opportunity to go to community and choose people who were not necessarily on that mailing list of the county executive. So the county executive has, I get them, I'm sure a lot of us do, emails that update us on what's going on. And that was how I learned the process with this accountability board. But if I weren't on that mailing list, I'm not sure that I would have even known to apply. And the same goes for the ACC. If there are members of the public who'd be perfect for this, but they didn't have the opportunity to apply because they didn't get a copy of the county executive.
It was more than the email that I think. Well, let me just put it this way: the administrative charging committee, I'm assuming they used to wait the same way they did the police accountability board, and those were shared with the municipalities. They were placed on the municipal web pages. They were put on the county's web page, and it was widely advertised. So if it was done the same way as the police accountability board was, it was not just the email list.
It sounds like what you're describing though is that the exec or somebody within the exec office screen those applicants, and that we have essentially approximately 15 now.
Yeah, they screened the applicants and they picked out the ones that met their criteria. They picked from that, and then they sent out the rest. I don't know what the body. Let me just put it this way: we got what they told me that the ones that they didn't pick. Maybe they didn't get the 17.
That they didn't pick this board.
They didn't pick for their ACC. Those two people you saw, that they didn't pick for that.
So
The body of applications could have only been 7.
So here's the rubbish. You're taking the broad number of applicants, narrow down to 15, and then from those 15, you have to narrow it. But maybe somewhere in that broader audience was somebody that we may have.
So if
I can find out from the Office of County Executive.
If I'm hearing you correctly, the 15 that are left are most of the applicants for 2 appointments. Those were made by the executive. They're appointed, the 2 of them are. But that there's 15 applicants left that didn't get selected for that, but were narrowed down by the county exec's office. The 2 that were allowed to could be those or anyone else, according to the rules. And it sounds like what you're suggesting is that, and I'm asking, are you suggesting we open it up and do another advertisement and then look at whoever else might be interested based on our qualifications that we decide on?
Given the time constraints, I think that's unreasonable. But the point is that we really don't necessarily have the best people. I mean, I'm not saying no disparaging the people who are going to be 15. I'm not disparaging.
No, I don't think you are.
However, there may be other people that we, you know, we don't know what the criteria that the county executive used. And now we're from her criteria, we're narrowing the criteria to 2 other people that, you know, that we decide to come up with. So
do you want to get a legal comment? But I do want to say they kept saying that the ACC, there are cases coming in all the time. So we are dealing with time crunch with respect to that. And what you do, I know we want to be thoughtful in the process. But we also don't want a backlog where people in this community think nobody is addressing it. And I think that's scary. And then, you know, if we get this kind of pool, we should have been better. This has been such a kind of, you know, process. But they can't even start that training until they get all of that. And that's 40 hours. And so if you keep adding on, I'm not you, but I'm saying if you keep adding on, we really start to delay a process that's been very delayed already.
Yes.
So 6 months.
Right.
I hear that, and I'm just expressing this discussion.
So I think what I wanted to find out, do you want me to contact the county executive office and see if that 17 was they pulled from a pool of 50? Or and then get those 50?
That would be good.
I would love if they had a list of the bullet points that they measured against. So let's say 5 of them was 19, so they eliminated 8. But we just had a list of things that they use to filter people. That'd be great for us to know what we're looking at.
Thank you. You said in one sentence.
Yeah, I think that since we're, I mean, like Margaret just said, that get the faces, we under a time window. So we don't want to start the process over again. I think this is where it's very important to get this piece right. So moving forward, I don't know if this process will continue to be in place moving forward in the future. But right now, I trust that the 15 that were selected were best. And so we'll just go with that and look and see what they have from that, rather than we start the process all over again. Because again, we're in a funny situation because cases are still coming in. And whoever's on that ACC, they want to be working. So we don't even know what those cases in that process will look like because this is all new. It's completely different than the previous CCOP. And so everybody's going to be learning on the fly. So I think right now what we'll do is we'll go with 15 and we'll develop that criteria, getting those bullet points of what they were looking for will be helpful. So we can grab that as well. But also as a body right now, as citizens that are concerned for Prince William County, I think we need to put some things in as concerned citizens. It's very important to make sure that we get the right person, not biased on one side or the other, but really focus on trying to do the best job for the citizens of Prince William County. That's the most important thing.
Look, can we, each of us, get email so we can look on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
issues.
that's what I said. I would email them
And then,
tomorrow.
we might come back
If not
with two
tonight.
names, and your two names might be different, but we can say why we picked these two names.
So, and again, that has to go to our county email. We get that stuff to our county email. So make sure you send that information out.
Yeah, when Tammy gives me,
Okay,
can
okay.
prepare a list of these emails.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Just also wanted to make a recommendation. It may be that we can try to figure out some comments to think about, but I like the recommendation of going and looking at what those meetings entail for those other counties. I think we might be able to sort of pull some tidbits from there, but also I think maybe us to go on research. Essentially, we're trying to figure out what's the job description. So if you were a widget maker, a lot of us right now, we sit here like, we don't really know exactly what these people are doing and what skills would be great to have, right? That might be, and I know we're going to try to meet pretty soon. So we may be able to be more productive when we come back into that meeting with more informed recommendations about what this could look like in terms of skills and get right into it.
Yeah, and I think it's very important to understand and read about PTC and what they're supposed to be part of. So we can read through that as well before we even start considering that. And you're absolutely right. And so again, this is just a brainstorming session. Once we get this email established, we can all chime in and review and we'll come up with a ranking process. I think it would be important. Like we pick the top, maybe like the top 3, and then we'll kind of we'll it down from that, and then move forward from there. But I think the most important thing is again to come up with what we want to look for criteria for doing this. And again, understanding that these people that need to represent citizens, Prince William County. Somebody said residency time. I think that's very important because we don't want someone who has the skill set but doesn't have the investment of time in the county. Again, we want to make sure that we're doing things right and in the best interest of the residents of Prince William County. And they'll say we're just picking someone rather than not investing in the county.
So what would you recommend is, I was thinking minimally 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're saying that if somebody has a skill set, they just moved, they're setting up shop, they bought a house. I mean, it's one thing, I guess, if somebody has a little bit more trades job or something. I'm leery of choosing I'm more interested in skill set. I agree with the commitment to the county and to the citizens of the county. But it seems a little, I don't know but it seems a little arbitrary. Pick a certain residence period for that individual to sort of prove themselves point to show their commitment. And I know you don't mean it.
Yeah,
I'm exaggerating a little bit. I think it's more important to focus on the skill set and certainly be a resident. Have an investment. I think it's fine. It shows investment. It shows.
And
I mean, that's just kind of my 2 cents.
So I think a rubric is what's going to answer that, right? So if you have, it can only be positive. So if you've lived here 1 to 5 years, you get a point. If it's 6 to 10, it's 5. It's more than that. So it can only go up. It doesn't reduce an individual. And their skills may give them higher point rankings in other areas. Right? Or someone else may have it higher for residency. They may not have the hard skills. So I think it comes down to creating a rubric that allows you to kind of weigh those out and not holding it against someone, but recognizing that may be an attribute with those hard skills and soft skills.
That sounds
If we don't want to get sued, because we have to do something like we do elected officials, you have to be a resident for like a year or something, right? In what place?
That's according to law.
Yeah.
This is not.
Yeah.
Here.
The basis of the law is to show that
you're
not just getting somebody coming in and being transient
just to see
They call me
officers.
Bobby Daddy.
Yeah, and I really like the fact that we do sometimes, like you said, the number, but when I'm looking outside, I'm like, if I'm a citizen and I'm saying, you're picking somebody, I've been in the county, I'm here for 5, and my application didn't get approved. I think that it is important to look at that. It's a way to give those some points as well. And then we can go pick and choose from every different thing and say, well, this isn't fair, this isn't fair. But I think that should be a criteria in there, absolutely.
Because I think if you have some residency, then you know the county, right? If you are here a year, you're still learning, about Prince George's County and, getting involved. You may not have the time to get involved in community activities and all that. Same if you only live here a year.
Right.
And that could have some implications on the investigation table,
Mhm.
right? Like if I don't know the area, I don't know where to look, or, what questions I ask, the context can be where someone
The thing is devil's advocate at the same time, someone who's living here 30 years could have so many, right? I venture to say most of us have relationships in our communities, right? We've got roles there in our communities. We've met our local police officers, and the devil's advocate argument to that is to say, for someone who's got a lot of relationships with a lot of police officers, and now is in a charging capacity, right? That could also create a conflict, right? So I think it's a balance. As long as it's not disqualified,
Yeah.
I think then we're okay, right? Because disqualifying people.
Yeah.
The rule against it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So back again to the hard skills.
Reading and comprehension.
No, I agree.
I'm not being facetious about that.
Yeah.
I worked in the CCO people. We would get case files every day. And you had to read through them and you had to understand them. And that was not always easy. There were times I had to draw charts for myself, trying to keep track of the case and trying to keep track of what's going on. But the ability to look at something and also see what sometimes isn't there. And that's where I think you do well to point out the investigative side. It's okay, did they go down this rabbit hole? Did they go down this street of, did they ask these questions? Or there were times where we would get transcripts of the interviews and you'd be like, why did he ask the question that? Why didn't he ask X, Y, and Z? How could she have possibly not followed up with that question? So being able to sort of ask those kinds of questions for the reading and comprehension, really read through the case, look at all of the evidence, put it together as a cohesive story.
Although it's hard to validate based upon application.
It sometimes is. So there are ways to quantify that.
And we've even seen people who can do that very well and have difficulty as well. So again, it's going to be a learning process. Everybody's presentation style is different, but that is the purpose of each of us reading those cases.
On the other side of that, will they be responsible for the reports that we have seen, where they get support?
The JCC you speak about? Yeah.
I heard the question.
Will they be responsible for preparing the reports? So in other words, the writing part,
yeah,
reading comprehension, back to us and messaging reports that we
As I understand the guidance, those reports, those final letters of disposition will be prepared by the administrative staff. Rather than
and you got every full-time staff here.
You've got a program administrator who's an attorney, and you have two paralegals, and the investigators will all work together to prepare those dispositions.
The administrative charging committee is reviewing the investigative file. They are not conducting the investigative file. Is that correct?
They're not compiling, they're reviewing the file that's been compiled by the law
enforcement agency.
They're looking at it to determine what charges they see in charges, and if they found out that hold the officer accountable for something, what that discipline would be based on the state.
That investigative file should contain a recommendation. Just as an investigator, they both have something.
Well, it may or may not come with a recommendation. It's not mandated to come with a recommendation. some invest, like with the Prince George's County Police Department, what we did with the CCOP is it always came with the recommendation. But our charge was completely different. We were an advisory kind of report. We looked at it and we decided whether or not we agreed with that recommendation for the charges and the recommended findings. In this instance, the law enforcement agency will conduct an investigation, and they can say, well, I think y'all have to charge with use of force, and I think it should be done the same, but it holds no weight with the administrative charging committee, because their job is to discern what those charges are.
They're just trying to make sure I understand what hard skills are looking for. You know, because understanding what their responsibility is in reviewing those.
Their responsibility is to look at those cases and review them and determine the charges.
And it's kind of hard to really say exactly what all of the pieces are because it's brand new. We've never done it. So I know Denise worked and Mark Jill worked hard on, trying to set something up to make it easy. But
so should there be some type of educational requirement? In other words, having a college degree would at least ensure that you know how to write a paper or read and analyze something. But you can't.
I would say no, just because I want to be inclusive as possible.
Yeah.
And I don't want to create barriers.
Yeah.
And so, that's just me. That's just me. Again, it can be an attribute.
Yes.
But I wouldn't make it.
Again, that you get an extra point if you have one.
Right. That's what I'm saying. It could be an attribute.
Right. Yeah, I'm not saying this. What we're trying to build here is that you talked about. So all of those things be this is the ideal person.
The administrative charging committee has guidance document like the one that is in there, and I can share that guidance document with you guys as well.
This is
no, not that's the legislation. There's a document that has a cover that looks a lot like this. That's in your package. It says Police Accountability Board guidance document.
Okay.
It's under the tab that said, I think it says guidance document. It's under the I don't know what code the tab is now. Might be under the orange tab. There was a guidance document prepared for each one of these institutions, and I will share. They've been approved, and I can share them with you.
Oh, okay. So we don't have that.
No, you only have the police accountability guide.
Oh, I got you. Okay. Well, so I think then maybe this is kind of premature to have this discussion until we really have a little bit of background.
The guidance document for the ACC is basically, how the workflow. So much as what the legislation is very broad on what the ACC is supposed to do, and it seems that each jurisdiction is building their own within the framework that the state provides in terms of what they do. But their charge is to review these investigations and determine the charges and this guidance doesn't tell them how to determine it. It just tells them how they work flow as they are determined.
I think that's something that you can definitely think about. Nothing is going to be decided right here. So we're just throwing some things out to kind of get something to think about when we come back to the next meeting. And then the timeline, Denise, you said about mid-September.
September?
Next year.
I'm hoping about mid-September, but Rhonda will tell you by next week. Rhonda will tell you by next week.
Ready.
As soon ASAP.
Right, and I think
ASAP.
Important, but I think it's very important for us to be fair when doing this. And so to put a realistic timeline on sometime in December, as we're right now, middle of November, because we have 15 applicants, we're still trying to go over what the criteria, how it's going to look, and things like that. Want to leave it at that time. So let me just clarify what I meant by the middle of December. I meant that they've been trained and in place by the middle of December, not to have you have that long time to select them. I just want to clarify that. So right now we're at Monday the 14th. So
but we aren't even in control of that. their training is subject to the availability.
Yeah, but we can't even put them on the schedule until you have to be trained until we have outside selection.
So we got 2 weeks to pick these. You know that?
Basically.
Yeah, that's 2 weeks.
Right, we can do it. I think we'll be very careful and cautious about something we haven't seen. But optimistically, if we look at the 15 that we have, like that's a good number of candidates. So optimistically, pick 2 to 15. They could be great candidates right there. We just got to figure out how to evaluate them. I think to the degree that we can figure out, do some research of our own, and maybe come back with recommendations on some of the criteria. I think we'll have a more productive conversation next time. I think we'll be able to I think the auditor and inspector, those are people with those type of skill sets. I'll be able to kind of come back with examples of criteria and value standards that we can bring and talk about.
I did want to say one other thing that has been interesting. I served as counsel with the CCOP for 7 years. And one of the things I was struck was that the best discussion for when we had diversity of the group. You know, and you had just a wide range of people and they argued. But that dialogue ended up with some of the best decisions that I've seen because you had, the diversity of some people may not have gone to college. Some people may be professionals or whatever, but it really was that if they were committed to the mission and if they had the time to be there and they read those cases, because we had some really people who were good on paper, didn't read the case. You understand what I mean? I mean, it was so that ability to give the time, the effort, commitment is so important. Because if you come to a meeting and 3 of the people haven't read it, it's not good. It's not good. And we saw that quite often. We saw that quite often.
So yeah, that was a discussion. So I'm looking now. So we should be beginning this week. Denise, would you be available?
I'm available.
I like the way you talk. So looking at coming 14th, does anybody have any suggestions? Thursdays are kind of tough. A lot of things that happen. Danny, you want to be available? Thursday? Like any other next week? Okay. You said next week? Yes. No, I'm sorry. This week. I'm sorry. Next Thursday, guys. I'm playing. See, Thursdays, I know a lot of things happen in the county and all over Thursday. So Thursday, initially, we I think Wednesday. Okay. So this Wednesday. So you guys want to meet again this Wednesday?
What time is it? I'll be out of town. I'll be in Atlanta. I'm leaving actually Wednesday, but I think we put it next month.
Okay. Oh, hold on one second. Yes.
Can we make it? I mean, you can meet virtually.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. If we can do it virtually. Yes.
So when we meet
virtually, in the evening,
do we have to have the county?
Yeah. No, your attendance says no.
Okay.
You'll still have your laptops. You'll have your laptops, but because it's going to be through Zoom, you can log on like any other person.
Okay.
So what we're trying to do to be personally, we're hoping here now on Zoom is going to be very hard. So people are trying to raise their hand as far as the discussion we're trying to have. And since we're trying to do a lot of different things, I'm just saying consider that. Like it's not going to be go around. You know, if you got to get off on mute, we're trying to we're talking now to get it something like this. Just be mindful that doing Zoom and trying to get that interaction.
Yeah, I understand that, but I was saying because it's so soon.
I'm just saying be mindful. It's not going to be as it's going to probably be longer. It's not going to be as I'm not going to say productive, but it's going to be a challenge with people trying to discuss like we're doing it now. We're able to see who's trying to go next and unmute and go back and forth. That'll be a challenge.
That's a challenge we want to have anytime.
Can I recommend that then we send our our 3 people or our contribution to the rubric to the staff. And then we all email the sheet, email it to everyone. So we use that as a basis for our discussion on Wednesday.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So again, so are we agreeing to meet? I mean, that's what I'm asking. Are we going to do what time?
You can do hybrid. Just put that out there. You can do hybrid. You know, you can. We'll have it on what is this? Zoom. We'll have it. I don't know how to join. So that's about it. We can have it on Zoom, and we can figure out how to do a hybrid. So we can be here physically and be here physically, and hope that the majority can be in. That one exception who's going out of town would have to be.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah. What's it? 16.
Yep.
At least 16.
Yes.
So are you agreeing to do to make it an in-person meeting with the exception of somebody who has to travel?
Or those who can't. Yeah. I mean,
Well, then we back to it might be a virtual meeting because there might be a lot of people who choose not to come.
No, I meant that, like, if you've already got something planned. Is everybody cool with Wednesday?
Let's just do it Wednesday. I mean, we're going to have to kind of buckle down right now. I know it's short notice, but at least this one, let's get this part out initially, and then afterwards, make it a bit better. Start, in virtual space. And I know it's short notice, but we really got to start knocking some stuff out.
Okay. But Wednesday, we supposed to be having a copy of the 15 names to look over everything.
You're gonna have those tonight or tomorrow morning.
Okay. So we'll be able to do them tomorrow. Okay.
And also the information that's coming out.
That will come when I request it tomorrow. I can promise I can request it tomorrow. It doesn't mean that they're not gonna give it to me. I just can't commit that time.
Is everybody okay with some homework? To do it by Wednesday.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah. Yeah. So we're coming. Yeah.
That's okay. Review and hear.
Yeah.
And moving. I always do that.
Okay.
Is there a motion required?
I'm sorry.
Yep. I just thought.
Okay, so we'll be Wednesday and 6 to 9, 1 6 to 9. Yeah.
Hopefully it won't be that.
Yeah. So we'll just put it out to 6 to 9.
And it's gonna be hybrid. You know, you can come here or you can do that Zoom. That's what you're saying. I already think about.
We could reach me in person. She bought a ticket before.
She's got an excuse out.
Yeah, she just bought a ticket online.
Just now.
I'm gonna be at 6 o'clock. The chair wrote it though.
So here's the thing. I love the joke. I love it, and I love that. But don't ever be late. I'm gonna wait out. Oh, I'm gonna get you. But no, yes, I'll be here, and I'll. Do I need a note from someone? Do I need a note from someone? Yeah, Marvin Joe got it. Okay, so 6 to 9. I'll be here at 5:45. Is that good? Okay. So we'll go with that time 6 to 9. And it may not be 9 o'clock. I don't just like we want to just put that time on the calendar. 6 to 9. I think we'll definitely have a big breaks in there. And then I think at that meeting we should decide when our regular meeting will be. So we'll give everybody time to think about it. Again, I think that Thursday, since so much has happened previously, when we do so many things that would happen, like people on HRAs, other meetings with different committees in the county and things like that. It's very busy. And I believe Tuesday as well. Wasn't all of y'all? Was it just every Thursday? Every Thursday. So we'll think about that. And if anybody wants to show up on Thursday, we can come next Thursday.
Just so clear, so we're coming with our picks. Are we coming with things to add to the rubric, like what exactly before, I just want to make sure I have
So,
exactly what we're.
so we'll send that agenda out too. Okay, Denise, we'll get that out to you by tomorrow. So we want to come with, once we review the resumes, come with your top three, however you chose them. If you can come with the criteria that you use to choose those top three, and then we'll discuss that, and maybe we can all add on that too. And I like the idea that you had. So we started a scoring system. Or if you think of something, you can shoot it out to us via email, and we'll start using it that way as well.
Montgomery County, Anne Arundel County, Calvert, and I think Howard.
You bring it up on Google.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the ones that have actually had meetings and have minutes.
So that's great.
Montgomery has a pretty good list. I think they've been meeting since July. And Anne Arundel probably since about.
So,
You'll be sending those out for our county.
yes.
Send what? The agenda?
The resumes and the agenda.
Oh, the resumes, definitely your county now.
Yes.
Yep.
Anybody have anything else?
Okay. Can we add for the future meeting? Before us to do, so that we can have it in place.
Yeah, it'll say that we met.
But I mean,
I think this.
I just want to make sure if we put a memo together and send a pigeon over there, I want to make sure we do something that needs to require.
In the future, I'm going to set up a team, group, and all the documents and stuff will be accessible there. But for the sake of time, this time I'm going to email.
Glad you volunteered. There you go.
And you've been voluntold.
And that'd be something else to talk about. You've done that. So yeah, we can definitely do that. We do have a kitchen, right? Denise?
Without a stove, yeah.
Okay.
Got microwave.
Okay, yeah, so we'll do that. Okay. Anybody have anything else?
But then when we get into these snacks, we're considered as a large group. For the allergies. And
yeah.
She'll work that out. Don't worry about that.
But I'm just saying, be mindful. Peanut allergies, lactose intolerance, a lot of stuff. So when you're thinking about what a group this large, you have to consider that. Maybe everybody should bring their own lunch. Bring their own food.
You know, the journey. We in adjourn.
Yes, sir.
On you.
You as well. Welcome back.
Right. Brian, yes.
Did you turn it on?